Calm, exactly. Because obviously that partnership that you and Decore were having at the start of last season was looking very promising, was looking very good, and yeah, it was a massive shame, obviously with what happened in that. But yeah, I think we've spoken enough about England, and there's actually one question that we were actually really curious to ask you. Now, obviously, I think Joe, you're probably the best person to lead with this in terms of like, how you're like a very multifaceted player. You played as a defender in midfield, different roles in midfield as well.
You're going to ask my favourite position is, aren't you?
Them cliched ones, I know.
Hopefully something a little bit more intelligent before that. But no, I mean, both Nina and I, we watch a lot of youth team football, and we were looking at sort of how a lot of Chelsea players, particularly midfield, you play like 6, 8, 10. You might play centre back, left back, whatever. Do you think that's helped you in your career? Do you think it's been a hindrance? Like, do you feel that people just see you as like someone who can play lots of roles, or do you feel like you haven't got a defined position? Looking at someone like Ajax, where you're like 8, and they say you're going to be a centre back, you're a centre back for 10 years, and they get into the first team. Do you think it's helped you, or do you think it's maybe sort of, I suppose, made people look at you slightly differently?
I think it's a tough one, because I think you can look at this from different aspects.
Yeah.
And I think the perfect example I'd probably give you is you've got an Eric Dyer in the England squad at the minute, and you've got an Ashley Young in the England squad at the minute. Now, they're both classed as versatile players.
Yeah.
And they'll play numerous positions. And I think for me personally, growing up and being told to play left back, being told to play right back, in the pitch, in the number 10, or at centre back, I was always intrigued to learn and see what the game has to provide.
Yeah, see what you can take out of that role.
Out of the role. And I've always been a team player, so for me it was, if the manager needed me to play in a certain position, I knew I had the knowledge of the position a little bit to play there.
Yeah.
For me, I don't think it hindered anything. I don't think it slowed me down in terms of what position I decided I wanted to play, or what position I was supposed to play.
Yeah.
There were times where I thought, I don't really want to play in this position today. Why can't he just play me in my position? But ultimately, the most important thing was being on the pitch.
Yeah.
So for me, if it was be on the pitch and be at right back, or not be on the pitch in midfield and sat on the bench, I'd rather be at right back.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's educational. I think every young player who gets told you should go and play in a certain position, I think you should embrace it, because eventually there's going to be a time where you never know, and you might be that one that the manager calls on to say, can you go and play in this position for me?
Yeah.
So for me personally, I would say it didn't hinder anything. It didn't hinder my development. If anything, it made me understand the game a bit more. It made me more aware of different roles, and listen, if you're built like a centre half and
Harry Maguire,
centre half is meant to be your position,
you're
playing centre half. But if you're built like a winger and you have abilities to play in right back or playing left back, you're not going to turn that down, because it's still an opportunity for you to be on the pitch.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, I understand. I agree with everything you're saying. But I guess sometimes, like, how us fans see things sometimes, we're like, why do managers use these guys maybe in a position that we don't tend to see them in? Like, let's say, for example, like a Kennedy. Like, we've always looked at this guy thinking, this guy plays as a winger. Anytime he's playing for Chelsea, it's always out of position. Bertrand Traore, like when obviously Mourinho used him at left back and that. Like, can it get to a point where it's like the managers aren't thinking, that they're only thinking too much about themselves and like not the benefit of the player?
Some of the cases you've got to stay out of as a player, to be honest with you. I don't really know. Some of them are questionable, of course, but I think in predominantly most of the situations it's either the manager trusts you to play in that position, or you have a sort of quality that at the moment in time that he's looking for in that certain position. So I think a lot of it is down to consistency as well, usually, because you've probably seen in games where the gaffer's had the option to has a player who can play left back, but he
I know what you mean.
It's going to do the job.
Yeah, because there was always like one tricky one for me, because this is why I always like struggle to understand it sometimes. It's like, let's say, you know, you're using a player out of position to play on the left, but then you've got someone, I don't know, like a De Silva that's played there for how long? Why would a manager trust someone that's never played there over someone that plays in that position?
I don't know. It's down to the manager at the time. Obviously, as a player, you're obviously going to question it.
Yeah.
Been in that situation before, and honestly, you feel horrible because you play in this position. Why doesn't he just have that faith in you to chuck you in and play in that position? But you live and you learn from it, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? It brings up another interesting point about obviously what you were talking about, how it like benefits your career when you can like learn to play different positions in that. But like, I wanted to ask you, do you think on the long run, does it benefit a player more if he learns to play in so many different positions, or if he just sticks with that one position and just obviously, you know, masters it?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think it's better to just learn one position. Obviously, this is going to contradict what I just said. But preferably, you'd want to master a certain position, because if you're doing the same runs, you're doing the same movements, you're doing the same patterns, you can only get better at it. And you tend to then learn different parts of the game for your position that you can improve. I can say, just the best example, I'll probably say Frank Lampard, for example.
Yeah.
In his career, you can only imagine how many times he's had to make those runs to get the timing of the runs, be able to get there at the right time every single time. Now, I've trained with him plenty of times, and I always ask myself, why am I always 2 seconds late? Why am I just a second behind? I look at this guy and he seems to always get there bang on time. Now, that's merely down to the fact that he's done this run 1,000 times. And he's only done it 150 times.
Of course.
And in that sense, it's probably more important to focus on one position. But like I said, versatility is something that if you have in your locker, then boy, who knows?
Yeah, you're right. You know what? Even like with what you were saying, then that's why I've always kind of like looked at world-class players with a bit of like a cynical eye at times, because it's kind of like, well, in a way, you're kind of like fortunate because you've been able to play for the right manager at the right time. Like everything's fallen into place at the right time and I kind of think like the average fan tends to think like, you know, this world-class player, like he was always this good, blah blah blah. But I think maybe for like a few small examples, like guys like, you know, the Brazilian Ronaldo, Messi, you probably get them generational talents. But when you look at most world-class players, they come from very humble beginnings, and really like with how they develop their game, it's always been down to everything happening at the right time. And I don't know, it's just like, you know, why is it like so difficult for that to be like a more regular thing, if you know what I mean?
Well, I think it's an open question, because you tend to think in certain positions, in certain situations, luck plays a big part, first of all.
Yeah.
And the football world is a very competitive world. Now, all it takes is for you to I don't know, an example, for you to be an academy player, or you know, you're an academy player with talent and the club decide to buy someone else for a certain price or whatnot. Now, this person's got more right to play ahead of you.
Yeah.
From the outside, because everyone's question is, well, this person's an investment. We've paid X, Y, Z amount for them and we need to play them. So it's very competitive, because there's always people coming through in your position. There's always someone who's there. Like, you know, when you think you've got your position sorted and cemented, there's a young player coming through who wants your spot.
Yeah.
I think it's not only luck, but it's a very competitive world, and I think competition is what creates that sort of atmosphere that that you've mentioned, not only atmosphere, but in terms of the positional sense of things. And players are very lucky, like you said.
Yeah.
One position, and they've managed to cement that position.
Yeah, I know, you're right. You're right, and it's just like I kind of feel like the average fan like doesn't really think about it like that too much. You know what I mean? So obviously it's good hearing it from a player too, and I don't know. I've always found it kind of frustrating from that part. Obviously, we all play like Football Manager. You know, after you win every single trophy, you're just using like you're winning with your youth team basically. You know what I mean? So you can kind of see it works in a sense, but